This is the first one where we're both
hosting.
talking.
Yeah.
And
do we do a bit and then introduce Rebecca, or
do a bit?
Well, don't talk. Tell the mic about it.
Oh,
don't
sorry,
tell
sorry.
me.
Oh, we're recording. Okay.
Is it happening? Okay.
Yeah, and to celebrate Sean's first co-hosting episode, perhaps you'd like to do the hello and welcome.
Oh, fuck. All right, beep that out with the. Oh no, we can. No, maybe
I have to tidy up.
I've already like done a terrible job at this. Hello and welcome to the Studio Meala Podcast. I'm your co-host, Sean Cunningham, and with me, the previous co-host, oh no, I've made a bad job of this. With me, I've got Owen.
Hello, it's true.
He's been the host up until now on his own.
And Sean, who's our guest today?
Today with us, we've got Rebecca Reynolds.
Hello.
Storyboard artist.
That's true. Storyboard artist, background artist, illustrator, comic artist, and duel master.
Oh no. my secret identity. Can't talk about that.
Probably our biggest Yu-Gi-Oh expert in the studio.
Which of those things do you want to talk about first? Do you want to open with the duel master?
I guess we'll open with the duel masters, I suppose, and then work backwards.
So
we'll work downwards.
I wanted to mention that you were a duel master, but I don't know, is that the term used? Because I was thinking Pokemon master.
Yeah.
Is a duel master what they say in Yu-Gi-Oh? I was suddenly
in the community?
Like, what did...
No, like in the show.
Oh, in the show. It's just a duelist.
A duelist. So
duelist,
you're a duelist.
A duelist. A true duelist.
Okay.
Because we were talking about this before you got here, and we were like, do they say in the show, like, let's play Yu-Gi-Oh?
Yeah, they go, no, it's like in the show they don't say let's play Yu-Gi-Oh, they say let's play Duel Monsters.
Oh,
so
weird.
but then in real life the card game's called Yu-Gi-Oh, but in the show it's called Duel Monsters.
Duel Monsters.
That's upsetting.
Yes.
And it used to be Wizards and something.
Wizards and Magic and Wizards.
I
Yeah,
have a deep cut.
that's a deep lore. That's a deep fact.
You know, I had to do some research before. I mean, I've got no animation questions.
Yeah,
but
that's
okay.
how we're going to get
We'll just
views.
talk about Yu-Gi-Oh for the next half.
Yu-Gi-Oh special.
When you tweet this out,
not?
do say like you're going to find out the truth about
Yu-Gi-Oh,
the original name of Yu-Gi-Oh.
the original Yu-Gi-Oh card game.
I think it's been a while since we've had a storyboard artist on. Last time was Kayvon, so we're going to get some interesting new perspectives.
I get to ask again because I've forgotten what is that.
What is the storyboard? What the heck is a storyboard artist?
So, what do you find yourself doing when you're storyboard artisting?
I guess like it's interesting because like the last storyboard gig I worked on, like a lot of the kind of the visual basics was already done, so it was kind of like just developing kind of rough boards or like beat boards, but then storyboarding from a script is like so much different.
Yeah.
So you're kind of, when you're going from a script, it's more so you kind of have a bit more freedom where you're reading through the script, you can kind of see certain compositions in your head and you're like, oh, that'll look cool and that maybe that'll work, and then you kind of go from the script into thumbnailing, where you're kind of making little like compositions, like rough compositions from the script, and then you'd usually like send that to the director, be like, what you think of that? It's like, does that look good? And they can say, yeah, that looks good, or change that, or scrap that, or make that, like push that, and then from there you start developing the actual storyboard and just doing poses and just basically working it up from there. And
joining a project, is it difficult to get into the groove of a show that you've not been with from the start, as being part of the development, or is that just something you get used to? Is it hard to get into that new flow?
Not really. Like I found, like, because before I was a storyboard artist, I was a revisionist, which is where like a lot of storyboard artists kind of develop the craft of storyboarding. So as a revisionist, like I did start on shows that had been like going for a season, and I was in on the second season. I didn't find it hard because you just get, from watching old animatics, you just kind of get a feel of the characters and the story, and like looking at the other artists' work, and you sort of get to grips with it and see everyone kind of approaches the story differently, which is really cool, and you're sort of drawing influence from all these different artists. So like I'd say it's pretty easy. Like it's not, it takes like about a week or two to kind of get into the flow of it, but being there from the start is kind of special because you're sort of just developing the flavor of the show, and you're getting to know these characters and developing the personalities and stuff, which is really fun.
Yeah, so, you've had a few chances to do that because I was only thinking recently, like you're probably one of the crew members that's been with us the longest.
I think so, yeah. 2019, I think.
Yeah, would have been the first, because the first thing you worked on with us was, I think was the first one, was Murder by Numbers, the first thing.
That was the first thing, yeah.
And that was the game trailer we did for that Switch game, Murder by Numbers. And then after that, was it Sunburned so shortly after that, or was there anything in between?
I did like really preliminary boards for Bear With Me, that little short that Kayvon developed like later on.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So I did that for like I think 2 weeks. But then Sunburn after that.
And then Sunburn. And Sunburn was, I felt like Sunburn was great because that was one of the, I mean, Murder by Numbers was just, it was a lot of fun, but it was quite prescriptive because the studio really had very specific stuff they wanted.
Yeah.
But Sunburn was the first time, like, I think you really got to put a bit of your own stamp on things.
Yeah, Sunburn was I think my favorite thing we've done, or I've done with you guys.
Yeah.
Because it was me and Greta, who's another storyboard artist, who's also fantastic, and I felt like our styles like gelled really well together.
Yeah. But yeah, I remember just getting in touch with you for Murder by Numbers, which was just so cool because I remember at the time, before we started the studio, you were just like my go-to, like, I know a storyboard artist.
That one. She just boards, right?
And Rebecca's my like frame of reference for like, that's a storyboard artist person who does storyboards. And I remember like before, like even when I was still in college and stuff, knowing that like you've been working in another studio and going like, I know someone who works in a studio as a storyboard artist. That's so cool. Yeah. So it was so cool for me as well when we were like, oh, we got Rebecca. I was so happy.
Yeah, because that was like my first kind of, I guess, like proper board job, as opposed to being a revisionist.
Okay,
up to that point, I'd been doing revisions in two different kind of very big studios.
Yeah.
So it was nice to kind of like cut my teeth on something like really cool and like super anime influenced as well.
Yeah, that was the appeal.
Yeah, that was.
I do hope anyone listening who hasn't watched the Sunburn video by The Living Tombstone, pause and check that out and come back to us.
Yeah. I was thinking, because we've released clips of just the animatic for that. And for people who don't know, an animatic is storyboards in video form. Moving. But I think we might try and put out like the full video, see if we can put out the full video of just the animatic, because it was really...
Yeah, that would be cool.
Yeah, it was really... I don't know, like that was a really good example of where the storyboards and the video, like... We really only had to polish up, you know, because the storyboards really actually carried through all the way to the end, which was nice. And
was storyboarding the goal for you when you started getting into animation?
No. It's weird because I graduated college and I got an internship at Boulder Media, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do. Because in the internship we kind of did a bunch of different stuff. Like we did, like I did backgrounds, I did comping. I think I did like a little bit of animation. Because like I went to college for animation, but like I wasn't very good at like actually animating. Like I kind of had more interest in like visual language and like viz dev and design and things like that. And it wasn't kind of until fourth year where I had to do my fourth year film that I was like, oh, I actually do like animation. Like this is actually like really fun. But yeah, when I started working in animation, I don't think I knew what I wanted to do. So after the internship, I kind of they offered me like a job in backgrounds. So I was like, okay, cool. So I was a background artist for like 6 years, and I like backgrounds. But it's really like backgrounds it's a super good skill to have, because you learn perspective, which is like a really super useful tool to have for anything. Just when it finally kind of clicks in your brain, it's like, oh, I know perspective now. I can do perspective and make things look kind of like worlds that kind of look like characters could live in, because I think there is like an interesting sort of split between like illustration and animation like backgrounds, because I remember there was some like animation documentary I was watching, I think it was that one that Disney doesn't like people to watch, like the Sweatbox one about Emperor's New Groove. And I think they went into the archives and they were looking at like all the old like hand painted Disney backgrounds, and one of the dudes on the production, I don't know who it was, but he said backgrounds for animation should look like an empty stage, which I thought was really interesting. Like that, you know, the stage is set and like, you know, the actors, like the characters can come out and like be in the environment.
My favorite thing about the Sweatbox is like when you watch Jaws or Jurassic Park or any kind of like big monster movie, the fun is the anticipation. You're waiting at some point a big monster is going to show up, and it teases it and it teases it, and then it finally happens. And in the Sweatbox, that's waiting for Sting to hear that they're not using his music. Because so much of it is about Sting's doing the music.
Yeah, and he's like up in the mountains.
Because I believe it was actually made, like, it was Sting's wife who was filming everything.
Yeah,
it was all going to be
his
about
wife,
this is Sting's going to make the music for the movie.
Yeah.
And then the movie turns into, the movie's not actually really happening.
Yeah, we're having so many problems.
Okay, it is kind of happening, but we're definitely not using Sting.
Yeah.
So you're just like, I cannot wait until this phone call happens. He does not seem like a patient man.
Yeah.
I was going to ask, with your background work, your storyboarding, your illustration, and your comic work, do you find much crossover, or do you go into completely different modes?
No, there's absolutely like a lot of crossover, because I found from like going from backgrounds into boards, like I think I'm kind of trying to remember like how I wanted to get into storyboarding. I think I did like a little bit of boards for a couple of very small like freelance projects, and like I was already doing comics before I started boards, so I kind of like the correlation between storyboards and comics is pretty close, I find, whereas like they're both sequential art, so like that's like kind of cool. But I guess like in comics you can like when I'm drawing comics, I'm really thinking in kind of animatic mode, where like you're kind of thinking, oh, does this make sense, and like how many kind of steps do I have to show that to communicate this action to the audience. But you know, like absolutely there's like a huge crossover, because I find having done backgrounds for so long is great for boards, because I find it is a thing with board artists that they most of the time they'll forget about the background. Which is like completely fair, because when you're a board artist, you're kind of thinking about like 7 different things. You're like thinking about the acting and the clarity and like
it's probably one of the most like generalist roles in a crew, just because I mean that could be a problem, like as in some studios like all over the world, where like some places will lean into one aspect of it more. You know, like you see some animatics that are basically completely...
It's the show.
They've just animated the whole thing.
Yeah, the entire thing.
And they're calling it like rough boards. It's like,
Yeah.
that's just done. And then sometimes the other direction, I guess is more in live action, but you'll see like fully polished, shaded.
Oh yeah, it's
so,
like insane, yeah.
One thing I love about boards is that like, as much as you can express yourself with animation, like at the end of the day, all the animators have to conform to the same style and stuff, and background artists might have to do the same. But like a board artist, like have a bit of room to approach it their way, as long as they're getting the point of the shot across, you know.
Yeah, I think that's what I love about boards as well, is like there's like a lot of creativity in it, and you can like just kind of creating shot compositions, and you're like, oh, maybe this composition will like make it through like all of the like director's notes and things like that to the end, and like just seeing it kind of polished and finished, it's always like a great feeling, because like every department kind of will add to the boards, like especially with animation, like you're kind of providing like I guess very rough poses to animation, then seeing how much the animators kind of polish it is always like magical, like especially on the series we just finished, like just seeing the animators kind of all the stuff they'd bring to the table, like from the board stage, was like always like just so exciting.
I was gonna say it must be the most kind of like satisfying quote unquote magic kind of department to be in, because you are just handing it off and going, all right, you all make that, because like anything I've ever boarded, I've only ever boarded when it's something I was just also doing myself when I was freelancing. So I've never got to like board something and then pass it off and see how it turns out. So that must be really...
Now it's your problem.
You mentioned a show we just produced called and that's been censored. You can insert a gibbon noise.
Redacted.
Anytime you hear a gibbon noise in this episode, it's going to be censoring a a show we're about to talk about that can't be talked about.
So you just finished a show and it's called...
And censor all of that?
Yeah.
So, like, I think we should talk about that because that's probably our most extended project to date. And, like, obviously the longest term thing you worked on with us, but, like...
Yeah, absolutely.
And it looks incredible.
Oh,
I think it looks great. Yeah.
Thanks.
We should pat ourselves. Also, thank you. Yeah.
But that was
like, yeah, it does look great.
I thought.
Yeah, it was a lot of hard work. Actually.
Yeah. Well, you know.
Actually,
so
like,
I'm not even going to thank you because you're just that's just stating a fact.
Yeah.
Because you just finished. Well, you recently finished up on. I can't wait for all these Gibbon whoops. It's going to be so good.
Don't say the title too much.
Just do one Gibbon whoop and stretch it out.
They do that themselves.
Yeah, actually, you've got plenty of options. But I just thought it was an interesting project for you, I felt, because on our end anyway, I know we were receiving like beat boards from the client and stuff, but otherwise you were just the storyboard artist from that, and like the smallest department in the whole production.
I think it was just me.
But I still think like people will see it when the show comes out, but like there's a lot of the visual humor in that I felt like really came from just stuff that you put in there, which I really liked. Like just the expressions and just any visual joke that was aside from the script and any of the humor that was already like baked in there was something that you put in and then just happened to like nobody decided to go against it. So that always seems like a fun storyboarding thing, is that there's an opportunity there to actually change the outcome of like how people are going to react. Like you have a bit of a say there, which
you can like kind of I guess it's like kind of building on stuff that's kind of provided to you. Like you kind of get like, especially with beat boards, you get like, you know, kind of a like rough drawing, and you're like, oh, like this is really good, but like is there anything I can do to kind of like make it like the composition a bit like nicer, or to push like kind of facial expressions, because I feel like with it was a real cartoony show, so there was like lots of opportunities to just like push expressions and cartooniness like as much as we could, which I really enjoyed, which I kind of I'd never done before in a like any of the kind of shows I worked on were quite grounded to like rigs and stuff, but I think that's the nice thing about Meala as well, because everything's like hand drawn. You can really just push stuff in a way you couldn't with rigging, like rig shows. I think it's great.
It really feels like a proper cartoon.
Yes, very
I love that.
Yeah.
One thing that's so funny about being at the tail end of that show now, though, is I keep seeing things now in just your personal drawings that are like, she wouldn't have drawn that way before.
No, I absolutely agree. No, like totally, like, yeah, because I've noticed, like, yes, but definitely the way I draw eyes has changed completely. Like the little kind of like beady kind of cartoon eyes. Like I've never drawn like that before.
But the coolest thing that I liked about that project, and we had such a nice little crew, and everyone was so like tightly knit and stuff.
Yeah, the crew was fantastic. Like,
and one of the nicest things about that project, which was all like internalized privately on the Discord, and I'm hoping this will all boom when the show does come out. But because obviously we can only talk about it amongst ourselves, all the internal memes,
jokes
and
stuff,
just drawing like our own bespoke memes for the show that only like the other like 30 people we could talk about it. But you were always, and I think this might be a storyboard artist thing, you were always so much faster at just like, you'd come up with an ideas like this, like I can do this in 2 minutes on my lunch break or something. You'd come in with like one of the main characters dressed as Sephiroth or something. But I think that might be a storyboard artist specific extracurricular skill because of shorthand, and how that's kind of a thing that only really storyboard artists get to develop quite a bit. Is, and I guess to explain do you want to kind of explain what shorthand is?
Yeah,
a bit, maybe?
I guess the shorthand in storyboarding, I suppose when you've got like the character sheets done, when like on a production, like most of the time they're quite detailed, and storyboarding is a very time sensitive profession, so you do have to simplify the designs to a point where you can draw a lot of drawings very quickly. So you'll be kind of breaking down these characters to like these kind of more simplified versions of themselves, but not too simplified, so that the animators can still use them like well in their work. So yeah, you do like develop a shorthand, especially over time for characters. And I guess
Yeah.
you'd be like, well, like, can I draw this character like in under a minute?
Like not only quickly, but like quickly and clearly.
Yeah, and clearly.
So
yeah,
you
quickly and
basically
clearly,
have to come up with your own unique design of the character that only appears in the storyboard.
Yeah, and you'll see it like in every boards, like any boards for any show. Like you'll be like, well, this doesn't totally look like the finished product, but it's recognizable and readable. And yeah, I think that is like a skill in itself that you have to kind of develop through storyboarding. But I think you can only develop it by storyboarding. Like I don't know if you can kind of develop it without storyboarding.
It's one of those things that you see, like, you know, student storyboard artists maybe getting a bit too into just detail and tying things down too much, but like, but also when someone who's kind of starting out, when you explain to them that like to try and get through the stuff quite quickly, the instinct might be to draw it really loosely and really rough, which is fine for something like beatboards. Yeah. But like that specific skill of being quick and clear is such an interesting thing. Yeah. But honestly, the memes really solidified that whole thing, because also when we play, I don't know if people have we talked about it on the podcast before, but the game Gartic Phone, which we would always do on like if something wrapped up as like kind of a party or whatever, we play Gartic Phone, where
it's a drawing online game.
Yeah.
Where you draw pictures.
Kind of like Pictionary, sort of.
Yeah.
Evolved Pictionary.
It's got various different modes, so you can end up with small animations or just a whole bunch of pictures.
Yeah.
People bouncing ideas off each other very quick.
One of the games in it is, you know, you draw one thing in like 30 seconds, and then the next person has to try and draw the same thing in 25 seconds, and then it gets faster and faster and faster and faster. And in a group of like 15 professional artists, it's only you who are the storyboard artists, or like when it gets down to the 1 second thing, everyone's drawn like just nothing, basically.
They do like an eye.
But you'd manage to get something that's like that's really good. How have you done that? And I think that's like because storyboard artists just have that shorthand skill that like you don't get quite as much in any other department.
I've sat in on some of these Gartic Phone games as a non-artist, and let me tell you, it's intimidating.
Yeah.
I've seen into that community, the memes. I got to have a peek in, and it was very funny to see. It was like a hyper condensed online fandom. There was just a few people, but just like all engineered to make these memes happen. Yeah. And it just made me think about practically every animated show or movie must have this stockpile of secret, internal, funny, daft pictures of the characters. And I was like, what production would you most like to see?
Oh, God.
Like internal memes.
The secret making of book that was just all the notes being passed around.
I would
inside.
love that. I think productions should just like release like all the fan art people drew. Because I know a couple of productions have started doing that. Like what's it? Clarence. I think they had like the Clarence Evangelion.
Oh,
Clarence
right, yeah, and they actually put that out. That's
on Tumblr. That was fantastic. That was like.
I want to see the crew fan art of Animals of Farthing Wood.
Oh Jesus! Oh my God!
I don't.
Just like a badger with 2 guns,
yeah,
shooting a car before it can get run over. No.
Yeah.
This is going to come up at any point, but like Evangelion, anything. But like, I mean, we can go into.
We made promises to.
We did make some promises. Yeah.
That we wouldn't talk about Evangelion for too long. Well, I said we'll try our best.
Because like
we
a
all,
lot of Evangelion time.
All three of us might be the biggest marks in the studio.
Yeah. Like we all like it too much.
Yes.
There is like a nice little cluster of people in Meala who love Evangelion. But one thing you can guarantee is that like whenever any chat sparks up, the 3 of us will be in there at some point with something. Rebecca will draw, I don't know, Shinji with, I don't know, a frog head or something. But the storyboards for the intro of Evangelion, have you seen that Hideaki Anno drew himself?
Oh my God,
I don't think so.
And
a long time
you
ago.
can see it like timed out, but like they're so drawings on a napkin Like they are kind of more beat boards, you'd probably describe them.
Yeah.
They are just really shoddy little scribbles.
Yeah, it's just the idea
and
of it.
It's so great because it does have that clarity where it's like so much of the Evangelion intro feels like, oh, they've just done that in the edit to just get some stuff in there. You know, like when the text flashes up.
Yeah.
Or like as a close-up of an eye for like nearly half a second. All of that was bored. Like that was exactly what he wanted.
God.
And
that's so funny.
It's so funny to see that like something like that was boarded that much. And
when you say that the drawings were rougher, it's making me think about the 60 frames per second 4K UHD version. You know when people do these, they run
the frame smoothing thing. Yeah.
Someone stuck the Evangelion intro through this machine so that you can watch it in 4K. And like, even though the motion, you know when people's heads show up in the intro and they just turn slightly, like they just look up.
Yeah.
Like they morph horribly. And it's just like, was this worth even putting on that? Like, this just looks terrible.
Yeah, it's weird because like sometimes frame smooth stuff looks really good and sometimes it looks fucking like
We've never really discussed that.
I'll put a slow Gibbon. Gibbon reacts too slow.
I would say put just a Gibbon on the first syllable and keep the ing in there.
Yeah, like sometimes it looks really bad and sometimes it looks really good and it's so hit and miss.
Yeah,
because I like the kind of dreamlike feel with some of that stuff. Like there's a couple of like AMVs out there that look like it's all frame smooth and anime and it looks good.
We're getting into the AMVs.
Oh no, it's forbidden zone.
I'd say AMVs are probably like, if you're making AMVs when you're a teenager, you're on the way to being a storyboard artist or an animatic editor.
Absolutely, yeah.
It is
100%.
Editing. Like
yes, it is. Yeah, no, it's like rudimentary editing skills. You know, you're developing them.
They're generally telling some kind of story with, like picking the shots.
Yeah.
Which ones you want. We're doing real AMV.
Yeah, real AMV talk.
Well, I was gonna say on the topic of AMVs and just like, but also early signs that someone might be good at either storyboarding or editing. But actually, probably those two specific things.
Yeah.
It's that and something that a friend of mine said to me once when they saw a short film I was like, I bet you used to play with your toys and you would hold one toy close to your head and close one eye and have to make like little shots.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
And if you ever, like, if there's any parents listening, if you ever see your kids playing with their toys and they're holding their figure up to their face with one eye closed, like they're planning out shots. Like that's
interesting you say that because I when I was younger I was constantly making little stories with my toys.
yeah.
And like for my granny I'd like perform these little plays with my toys for her and she'd be like, oh, that's great, very good. Like,
very good.
Yeah, especially with like nativity figures. I mean that's like you've got everything. You got a stage, you got the players, the characters, and you can do like being brought up Catholic, like you're kind of doing like the nativity story and all this kind of stuff, but you're adding like drama to it. And I remember just making these little kind of Bible plays for my granny, and she'd be like, "Oh, it's very good."
Reenacting
Balthazar stepping up. No.
I was gonna say
King Herod, all this kind of like
reenacting the fusion
stuff.
dance with the three wise men.
Yeah. But it's interesting. Yeah, these kind of little things you do when you're kids that kind of inform. Like stuff like storyboarding, like down the line, like you're kind of like making these little stories with your toys in your head and creating these narratives, and you can see the whole thing in your mind.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I'm still thinking about the manger and the Mary looking down at baby Jesus. And like, this will be as easy as taking candy from a baby, which is just fine by me.
Oh, is that a Shadow the Hedgehog reference? Oh my god.
We're covering all bases.
We're doing it.
I can tick off all my notes.
Yeah, cross that one out.
Speaking of my notes, I also have here zines. You make zines.
Yeah.
You always seem to be doing loads of things. Your work output is very impressive.
Oh, thanks.
Like, I don't know how you manage to find so much time for personal fun stuff and all this great professional work, but you do it. So fair play.
Thank you.
But tell us about the zines.
Yeah, like I think on that note, like I think I'm the kind of person, like I'm very anxious, and I think if I'm not doing stuff, I get really anxious. either really anxious or really depressed, so I have to be doing something constantly. Like I try to take time off, because I think like my therapist was like, you need to take time for yourself. Like you can't be doing something all the time. You need to take time. So I'm like, okay, because she's like, if you're playing video games, that's work too. You know, you're learning. And I was like, oh, she's right. So you know, I try to use that to like be like, no, it's okay. You can have a day off, but on the other hand, I do love doing stuff and making stuff. Always makes me really happy. So I think that's why I'm constantly like putting out like stuff. But zines. I love zines. Like I started getting into zines when I was, I guess, in my 20s. And I suppose like for me, I've always been in like some kind of fandom space ever since I've been like a young teenager, like 12 or 13. Ever since I kind of got the internet. So I've always been involved in some kind of fandom, and like I've always been like obsessed with fan art and fan content. And I feel like in recent years, like just the quality of fan production has just like skyrocketed, because stuff is like way more accessible. Like printing's more accessible, and like manufacturing is more accessible. But yeah, like I love zines because it's like you're just putting out this little book of like, you know, you're like, oh, I drew like 200 different fan arts of Yu-Gi-Oh! I'm gonna put it in a book and people will hopefully buy it. And I did that, and people really liked it, and like that made me really happy. So but yeah, no, zines are great because you're just kind of putting out this little production, and then it's completely start to finish, you know, self-made. And like I like community zines as well, like are great because it's just a group of people just making something really cool, and you're combining all your styles. Like I was seeing like a recipe book zine, which was like which is really cute and fun, because there was like, you know, fanfic writers, artists, and like, you know, cooks working together, which was amazing. Was great. There was also Yu-Gi-Oh themed. But like I've been in like the Yakuza fandom. I was in a lot of Yakuza zines because at the start the Yakuza fandom was quite small and everyone knew each other, and we just like make zines together and put out like a lot of different content. And I did like a calendar and like just lots of different stuff. But I do love it. I think it's a really cool practice, because I know zines have been around like since the 80s, like like a long time. It's a really good way to get into like artist communities and stuff like that. Yeah, absolutely.
Like you see it really, you see people who are like quite young getting into like just contributing one piece to a zine. Yeah. But it introduces them to so many people that they learn so much from. Yeah. It's great. I always loved that about like people who are so into zines. You can like track their tastes.
Totally. Yeah.
So remember when I first kind of started following you on Twitter, I was like, Rebecca likes Berserk. And then like a year later, it's like, Rebecca likes Yakuza because she's been drawing Yakuza stuff. But it is nice to like, I'd say it is really nice to be able to look back on all of those doodles that like you didn't even give a second thought about at the time. So like, I'm just going to draw this. Yeah. Like even stuff you jot in a copybook. And gathering all that up into a book and seeing like, well, like that actually informs so much of how I draw. And
yeah, totally. Yeah, no, it's really fun because you kind of, like anytime I'm kind of gathering material for a zine, I'm just like, oh, I drew this when this was happening in my life, or
it's like a journal this. Almost.
Yeah, it is like a journal because there's a specific memory attached to every drawing, but plus kind of seeing your kind of development across a span of time, like across like 2 years, and be like, oh, I was so into these characters, and I love these characters so much, and I love this story so much, and this like brought me so much like joy in my life, and like it's nice to just compile like all these like just drawings of characters that really meant a lot to you in the one space, and then kind of putting it out there and people kind of connecting with it and be like, oh, I love this, and I loved how you drew this character, and like that's always great. And it's awesome.
It is great to have a record of your fandom in a way, because you can find yourself for even like a short period absolutely loving and being practically obsessed with something, like some show, some movie, game, whatever it might be. But once you've moved on from that, if there's no record, you can very easily just be like, oh yeah, I remember being into that. Yeah. And it doesn't, but like if you have those drawings, there's a real like, there is the love I had for that thing.
Yeah, it's like proof
recorded. Like, I did care enough
to
put this down. So that's a really nice thing about them. Also, your comic work.
Oh yeah.
At the moment, you're also doing a comic called Valerie.
Oh yeah.
Tell us about Valerie.
Yeah, Valerie. Valerie. I finished Valerie in 2019. It was originally a comic I drew over the span of like 2 years. It took like so long it was like the longest comic I ever drew. It was like about 60 pages. And yeah, then I kind of started releasing it online, and then I did a Kickstarter to do like a physical book of it, which went like way better than I ever thought. Like people were like super supportive, and it was like so nice. Because I remember like launching the Kickstarter, and like it got funded like super quick, and like going into work on Monday, and everyone was like yeah, well done, awesome, can't wait. And it was so great. It was so everyone was so sweet and nice and supportive. It was great. Yeah, so I released a physical comic, and now Irish Comics are releasing it 1 page a week for the rest of the year. So that's great as well, because it's kind of more people are kind of seeing it and seeing it per week and stuff like that. But yeah, Valerie, it was like, it's weird looking back on it now, because like at the time, like when you're drawing like a really long, I think it was the longest form project I ever done for myself, like personal project. And just you're kind of drawing it, and like it's like comics are such a slog when you're kind of doing it by yourself. Like the thing about comics is like it's such hard work. Yeah. Like it's such a cool medium, because you're like basically kind of creating like a film on paper, like pretty much, and you oversee every aspect of production. But at the same time, it's like it's so much hard work. Like, and I know there's like a lot of kind of content out there about drawing comics and how to kind of maximize your output while minimizing the amount of kind of work you have to do for it. But yeah, for Valerie, I kind of went in like kind of very, I guess, uninformed about comic creation. Like I'd done short stories and like smaller comics for anthologies and things like that. But yeah, this was like my first kind of big project by myself. But yeah, you're kind of like working away on it, and you're like, God, I hope people like this. Because this is but yeah, I guess like what story wise, I never even talked about the story. Yeah, it was about a girl called Gab who kind of lives in like sort of a suburban sort of town, and her friends go and explore an abandoned mall, and there's a ghost in the mall called Valerie, who was, I guess, I don't know, kind of spoilers. She was, I guess she was murdered in the mall, and it's just about them kind of exploring the place together and sort of connecting. And it has like kind of a romantic element to it as well, and I guess like a connection element, and like I guess the main character, she's kind of stuck in her life. She's sort of a college dropout. She's not really sure what she's doing, and her friends are a little bit dismissive, and I guess she kind of, talking to like a ghost, she kind of gets more perspective on her life. And I was kind of going for that, because when I started Valerie, I was between jobs, and I think I was like unemployed for a good few months, and I didn't really know what I was doing either. So I guess it was kind of putting those sort of sentiments from parts of your adult life, kind of post-college life, where you're just like, I have no idea what I'm doing. Like, I'm not earning money. I'm just sort of drifting along. I'm applying to jobs, not hearing anything back. And like, it's very easy to become like kind of depressed and feel like you're just failing at adulting, I suppose. Yeah. And I guess I was trying to kind of capture that sentiment, and I suppose the setting of like an abandoned mall, because I know kind of dead malls became like a real kind of thing.
Yeah. That's a really cool place to set a comic like. Yeah. Because
I was fascinated with, it was a YouTuber Dan Bell was sort of the first to kind of explore these spaces and these big monuments of like, you know, American capitalism and how like kind of the 90s and that kind of high point where consumerism was like massive, and there were these big social spaces, and now they're just kind of decaying, and there's like a real sadness to it, but it's like really fascinating just to see these super colorful spaces, and it's just like there's like, you know, kind of plant life growing all over them, and it's a real kind of apocalyptic sort of setting, but in a world where there's still, you know, life happening. And yeah, I kind of wanted to explore like a lot of those kind of themes.
Hell of a Boss.
Oh yeah.
Gotta talk about Hell of a Boss. Now, how did you end up with Hell of a Boss?
It's kind of like a funny story, because at the start of 2020, like I was looking for work, and Vivian Medrano.
I guess a little shout out to Spindlehorse, which is the studio, and then Vivian, who's the creator and like kind of the head of that studio, right?
Yeah, pretty much. Head and the creator. Shout out to her, because her whole operation is amazing. But so she was advertising for positions for Hell of a Boss in like February 2020. So I was like, oh yeah, I actually originally applied for boards on Hell of a Boss, and they sent me a test, and I did the test, and and like I think I was going abroad at the end of the week, so I kind of like really pushed to get it done. Like I didn't rush it. I did it very quickly and I sent it off. And then they got back to me and they were like I think I asked for a test and I didn't expect anything back, and they sent me a test and I was like, oh, okay, cool. So I did it and I sent it and they were like, oh yeah, you know, it's really good, but not really what we're looking for. But we saw you do backgrounds. Do you want to do backgrounds for us? And I was like, okay, sure. Yeah, so I got that job, and then I got another job with a different studio. So I was essentially just doing 2 jobs at once. And then the pandemic started, and we all had to work from home. So yeah, I was essentially doing 2 jobs, and that was kind of fine for me because there was like literally nothing else happening. Like we were just all kind of trapped in our houses. So I was just kind of working nonstop, which was like a good and a bad thing, because I think at the start of the pandemic I was like, oh, I'm just gonna keep working just to distract myself from all this like horrible, terrifying stuff that's happening, and which is what I did, which I think sort of worked and sort of didn't. like mentally not a good idea.
Yeah, for a while it's nice, but like it's not sustainable.
Yeah, so but yeah, no, I did backgrounds on the entire first season throughout 2020 and some in 2021, and then I started work on Meala again, so that was kind of, I was still doing it as a side job, but then it was kind of balancing both got kind of insane, so I finished up at the end of season 1 on Hell of a Boss, and then was just kind of concentrating like solely on Meala, which was good for me mentally, I think.
Oh, good.
I'm happy to help.
Glad to hear that. No, like, cause that carried through a bit on the show, because you did, towards the end of the production, you did end up doing a couple of backgrounds towards the tail end of it as well.
I did, yeah.
Which was very seamless. You were totally able to just switch focus. And like, it was like, oh, okay, cool, she could do that too.
Yeah, no, it's like a super fun production, because I guess it's interesting because like Hell of a Boss and Hazbin Hotel, they're so popular. Like they're like the fan response to them is always like insane. Like they'll reach 1 million views like within a night, which is crazy. But it's cool to be part of that, because like the fans are like they're like super nice and really appreciative of all the work that kind of goes into the show. And I did like a little bit of merch design for there has been stuff as well. Yeah, I did 2 t-shirts. I did one of like Charlie, the main girl, and like the kind of main cast of like the bar, and then I did like a summer variant where it's like a tiki bar, which was fun. Which is fun. Yeah,
it's really nice to see a project with a fan community like that. When you think about how many cartoons, even well-liked popular ones that go out into the world, but there seems to be nothing other than an online response that's maybe less than supportive and happy. But you know, so the fans of it can see like kind of almost firsthand, people make this. This is a lot of work. This is a passion project, and they're passionate about it as well. And you know, like there's a lot of professional work where people seem to have forgotten that maybe people have put a lot of hard work and maybe love and care, and do not have that kind of relationship with the show. In fact, they might have what one might call a shitty relationship. Thank you, Mr. Gibbon. He's caught me just from the side there. But yeah, I really like that about it. Now, you do so much wonderful personal stuff. We can tell your passions from what you draw, but if you had, it's my favorite question in each one, your dream project, unlimited resources, all the money, all the time, but you're in charge, what would you like to make more than anything?
Oh my god. Oh man. Like
also, you have access to every IP.
I was gonna say
anything you want. Oh man, I guess like it's funny because we were talking about it earlier. Like I guess I would love to just do like the perfect adaptation of Berserk.
That's my answer as well. I was gonna say, I was kind of hoping you would say that.
It's such a massive thing though. Like God, like but I would just love that. Perfect adaptation to come out.
But it is such a tragedy that like it never gets the
never gets
thing
made,
that
yeah.
like is as good. Yeah.
But I guess if like it wasn't up to the task of doing Berserk, I just like I love anything with like girl gangs and like delinquent girls. Like most of my personal characters are all like just delinquent girls who beat the crap out of people and don't care.
We should mention your Meala Mini you did recently actually, because that's that.
That's
basically.
that. Yeah, I mean it's just there's like a theme happening.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that was super fun. I really like enjoyed doing that because it was just sort of like a I don't know, a high concept. A high concept sounds so weird. I guess it was like a very polished animatic, I suppose.
Well, it was very it was very clearly like. Once you showed me like one drawing of what I was like, well, you've got this all figured out.
Yeah,
Like,
I think there's a good chance of Meala getting a reputation for delinquent girls.
Yeah,
and I think
Sunburn
you'll
as
have
well.
been a pillar in that.
yeah.
I hope so.
Very much your influence.
Yeah, that's what I want to be remembered for that.
and probably a few other things. Yeah,
I'm sure there'll be
Yeah.
like even
yeah.
slipped into every other project.
Yeah, down the line
regardless.
is got to be at least one.
Yeah.
Finally, I think an oblique strategy card
Okay.
would
Oh,
be
yeah.
good.
Yeah.
All right, go
Okay,
for
cool.
it.
Just like anywhere.
The one at the top.
On the
there.
top. Okay, yeah, cool. Okay, I'll go for it. Oh my god. Oh, this is like actually kind of relevant. It says work at a different speed,
Okay.
which actually like ties in nicely.
What does that drum up in your head?
I suppose in relation to storyboarding, especially because it is such a fast job. I guess like kind of time management is so important in boards, and I guess in comics too, where it's like you kind of have to really prioritize what gets your attention. Kind of, I guess with board artists, you're thinking of so many things. You're thinking of like the pacing and the editing and the acting and the animation and the language and the gestures. I think it's definitely like a learned skill. I don't think anyone is born being good at time management.
No, yeah,
I think
sure.
you need, it's something that's learned over time where just whenever you work on something, try and prioritize what is important and don't beat yourself up if things aren't perfect, because nothing's ever perfect. Is the kind of the flaws that make things good. I think it makes things
like
special.
I mean, even in boarding, it's that idea of just like, right, just move on, because like if it's rubbish, someone's gonna give you a note about it anyway.
Yeah, but yes, that's what I kind of always think. Is like, well, if it's really bad, it's gonna get sent back, and there's gonna be a note, and that's fine. Like,
I can do it then.
Yeah, it's like sometimes it's kind of better to get a different set of eyes on stuff, because people will see things that are like, the director will see things that you'll have missed, and you're like, oh, okay, that's a great idea. I'll do that. And like, I guess even the current project we're on is like, I know we can't say like anything about it, but like kind of working closely with the director is always great, because they'll be approaching things in a completely different way to how you're doing, and you can kind of back and forth with them, and it's awesome to just like have people from different backgrounds and experiences like just kind of give their ideas. And I think that's the best part of the creative process, is just collaboration, for sure. And like I always love collaborating with people. So.
Me too.
Yeah.
Do you know what? Can I shock you? I don't mind collaborating at all.
No.
In fact, I think it's lovely.
It's great.
It's great.
It's great all together.
Well, Rebecca, thank you very much for coming on the Studio Meala podcast. I'm going to hand it over the sign off to the co-host Sean, who's got a big thing prepared.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Rebecca. I'm good at signing off the podcast today.
Well,
It was awesome.
He's made sure that I won't do that again. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Catch you next time. Ow!
No!
Help
me! No!
Sure, I'm gonna be sure, put your hand in the ground.